All right, well, thank you everybody for joining today. Let's go ahead and kick off the worldwide launch of Spectra with our power and data. So my computer will cooperate here. So I'm Chris Crosby. I am the founder and CEO of Exact. Exact is a data and analytics and machine learning conversational AI technology provider for the contact center. I've been in the space about 30 years now, and have pioneered a number of things in primarily data related. So today, before we dive into Spectra, I want to give a little history lesson, maybe on the road that we're on in the contact center space and customer experience. So there's a lot of talk, a lot of discussion, these days around AI and what it means to the contact center. And I think getting oriented around really the state of the industry is important. So in many ways, despite the advancements that we've seen in data and analytics and artificial intelligence, we are still using KPIs in the industry that date back to about 1909. When the gentleman on the left, Mr. Erlang, was studying capacity management for the telecom industry and how to manage switchboard operators and staff those, which is where Erlang C came along. Erlang C is all about, meeting service levels and figuring out average handle times in order to do that. So what this means is that those are still pretty much bedrock foundational elements to the industry, and it's built around it, which means that we are looking at the same reports as our great-great-grandparents' call center. And let's face it, there's only so many ways that you can look at service level in HT and find utility in that. So before we dive into the contact center world, I actually want to talk about autonomous vehicles. Because AI is taking over everything, right? AI is eating the world. But I think it's a useful context, a useful frame to kind of look at what's happening in the space. So back in the day, we had human-powered and human-driven vehicles there, bicycles and Fred Flintstone and horses. And then in about 1909, again, about the same time that Mr. Erlang was developing his models, Henry Ford released the Model T, right, which gave us machine power. Still human-driven, very much in control. And now, according to all the buzz, we're on our way to autonomous vehicles, where we don't have to do anything but kick back and watch Netflix as, the car takes us to and from work. There's actually, what I find interesting is that there's actually a standardized framework around autonomous vehicles. There's an agreed upon framework, which I think is important because this allows us to set a grounded context and vernacular around the conversation around AI in this particular industry. Zero level automation, that's how I grew up. You're cranking the windows, you got no cruise control, you got nothing. Level one, that's your cruise control. The car can do one thing at a time, and you're still behind the wheel and you're still shifting the gears. Level two, you may hear, level two, level three autonomy. Level two is where we're at today. So even the best Teslas and autonomous vehicles are still only controlling multiple functions at the same time, but the driver is still very much in control. And then as we progress up this continuum here, this maturity model, the vehicle starts to do more and more things on its own, and the human kind of fades into the background and is there for taking over in case of an emergency, or in case you want to slow down and take in the view. My question here is, inside of an autonomous vehicle, is that made up of individual things doing their own thing? So is the automatic braking doing its thing while the automatic steering is doing its own thing? I think the answer is obviously no. because we would clearly end up in a ditch. So then what is it? These vehicles are built on data as the platform, and they become an ecosystem of tightly coupled AI applications then that are served off the same censored environment that's capturing data from all of the individual devices and external sources and creating that autonomous experience. And I think the corollary to our industry, to customer experience in the contact center, is a very similar journey, whereby it's not that long ago, everything we did was human powered and human driven. I think there's still a lot of contact centers that look at reports in Excel. Second phase of this evolution becomes machine powered and human driven. Call it BI, call it business intelligence, data warehousing. We're starting to get our data act together. And now there's this new promise of data powered and AI driven contact centers where, humans are managing the thing from the beach. But what's that mean, right? How do we start to put a useful context around that? And I think the same framework that was developed for autonomous vehicles applies very much to the contact center industry. We're on our way to the self-driving experience. At level 0, you've got no automation. You got no IVR. You have no routing. Everything's manual. Reporting, all of it. Level 1, this is, maybe the late 90s when we start, early 2000s when we start to get into workforce management software coming of age, business intelligence applications starting to arrive on the scene. More recently, I think we moved into level 2, where we're starting to see this partial automation, some RPA applications, conversational AI is all the rage right now, right? Whether that be automating customer experiences or whether we're automating, agent experiences with agent assistants. This notion of what I'm calling speech analytics 2.0. We've had speech analytics for a long time now, but now with natural language processing and some of the large language models really accelerating, we're beginning to see a new level of insights. And then slowly, we're moving into this level 3, which is going to be this conditional automation. I assume by now everybody has heard of ChatGPT and the rage that's taken over the internet. That's starting to get into conditional automation, where it's not completely unsupervised. It's not a magic bullet that's going to do everything for you. Still needs guardrails and training, but it's starting to deliver more capabilities. The same holds true across every aspect of the contact center, whether that's predictive forecasting, intraday automation, and then eventually, once we get really good at this, then we're going to move into automating complex interactions at the agent level, at the customer level. And then finally, none of us will be needed, right? As AI truly comes of age, we'll be kicking back. So let's talk about why we're not there, right? So if vehicles need a unified data platform to really deliver on the promise of autonomy, what does our world look like in CX and contact center today? So I'm going to introduce you to 3 people. Wait on the left, on the right there is Judith. She's the operations manager for Inflection CX, which is a BPO, contact center outsourcer, coincidentally or not, the sister company to Exact. Judith is responsible for a number of things in a contact center, just like her peers. She cares about the customer experience, cares about agent performance, cares about optimizing the contact center from a staffing and scheduling perspective. And now there's this new thing called AI, conversational AI, that's coming into the mix. And Judith's boss says, hey, how are we doing? I think with all this data and all these new tools we're delivering, we ought to be able to see new stuff. And Judith says, I think you're right. So she goes to the guy on the left, to her left, that says, Dan, the data scientist at Exact. She says, hey, Dan, can you give me something besides service level? Because I think, the boss here, he's asking about this IVAs and, our overall performance. And it seems like there's something here. Dan says, I think that's great. Problem is, I got to get the data, right? You're deploying, the contact center is deploying all these new applications, migrating to the cloud. where is all this stuff? And so he goes to the guy on the other guy on the left and says, Tony, who's our engineer, says, I understand that all this data is locked up in APIs in source systems, data everywhere, but you got to give me something. Tony says, I got you. So he starts developing all these applications. And we realize all of a sudden that there is a huge data chasm between getting data from the source systems on the left, so call it NICE, Amazon Connect, your CRM systems, intelligent virtual agents, getting those insights into a way that the individuals on the right, be it the business analysts, the data scientists, can actually do something with. They can make informed business decisions about. And the steps you quickly find is that, well, you've got to be able to code something up that can extract all that data. Whether it's behind an API or another data source, you got to get it out. That's the extract phase, right? And then you got to put it somewhere. So you got to build out a data warehouse. Then you got to transform it. You got to map it all together so that your CRM data and your IVA data and your agent data is all in one place and in a way that actually is intuitive enough to analyze. So you got all the complexity there. And then your CIO walks in the room and says, hey, what about HIPAA? Or what about governance and access management? Because we can't just have all this loose data roaming around the enterprise. And then now you're stuck figuring out things like governance, access, caching, because as you put more users into the mix, this thing's at a scale, right? And then finally, you figure out how to get it into the insights, which maybe you could short circuit the thing and go buy a tool that's like a stack, performance management that shows you everything. But then, Judith Spoth says, I don't want to go log into another tool. We use Tableau today, or we use Power BI. I'm already paying for that. Or we use Apache Superset. Why don't I want another tool just to see my contact center experience and customer experience? Couple this with the complexity of that, which is these data APIs are great. Some of them, these are Genesis on the right, Zendesk on the left. Powerful. Problem is, the individuals on the right of this equation don't understand APIs. Tony, the developer, great with APIs, doesn't understand the other side of that chasm, what to do with that data. Which then in the middle, we end up with this thing called the data warehouse. Because Data Dan is stuck in the middle going, I got data coming in here, Tony needs to know where to put it. Judith's asking questions, what do I do with this? And then, the CFO comes along and says, well, let's go deploy AI, or let's try out this new AI quality assurance tool, because it's going to integrate all this and it's going to do this great stuff for us. And then you quickly realize that we're just back to square one. You've got all these disparate point solutions, this all-in-one approach. The CCaaS providers are trying to solve for this problem by putting more stuff on box. And the more they do that, the more applications, explode around it to solve problems. Not to mention that all of this, this lack of connected data layer just requires cross-functional buy-in and adaptation across the entire enterprise. So what if we were to step back and think about the contact center through the same lens as we do autonomous vehicles? What if we said the data could be the platform? Where would we start? I think we'd start with a unified data plane with an open set of APIs that can connect to legacy infrastructure, whether that be your on-premise contact center, ACD, Cisco, Avaya, Genesis, a bunch of that stuff out there. Maybe it's going to connect to one of the new ASR engines, one of the new speech to text engines, because I personally believe this is a separate webinar, but the ability to get a transcript accurate, cheap, and fast is going to be the next breakthrough in this industry, because it's going to open up so much information and knowledge. But you got to have context. You got to plug it in. And then you're going to have all this AI training, right? If you're going to deploy conversational AI, you need conversational management. Sorry, folks, OpenAI isn't going to solve this problem for you. Then you're going to have digital and voice communications in here, whether that be Twilio sending out SMSs, or you want to just orchestrate communications workflow internally. And then all of this still needs to be powered by knowledge, right? If you're going to build an agent assistant or you're going to deliver information to a customer, you got to have your knowledge act together. But once you do, once all this is connected, now we can start to build machine learning models and inference. We can start to dig into this unified data. And now when you put on top of that an AI workflow orchestration engine to start connecting the dots, again, now we can start directing other systems on what to do with the data and the knowledge. What you get now built on top of this new platform are signals. You can move beyond service level and average handle time, understand an agent's performance. You can build intelligent virtual agents. You don't have to deploy that as a new standalone application. Develop it, iterate, integrate. You can even build your own CCaaS system, right? Or feed all of this information into your contact center agent experience and routing engine so that it can be contextual, so it can be intuitive and automated for a customer. You build out agent assistants. By the way, the difference between an intelligent virtual agent that sits at the agent desktop guiding an agent and an intelligent virtual agent that's automating a voice call is just context switching. What information do I need? Who am I delivering it to? Why are we deploying those as two separate individual products? And now we've got all this performance management opportunity with quality assurance, because you can build always on QA. You can look at sentiment. You can look at these things without paying for individual applications to do that for you. And then finally, you've got this notion of learning and coaching, right? We're creating this continual feedback loop, stitched together because we're on a common data platform with unified reporting dashboards and alerts. So this is when we introduce Spectra. Which is the next generation content or data platform for the contact center. All of that complexity from crossing the data chasm is now abstracted completely away to a managed service running in the background. On the left, data source. On the right, information insights. Everything in the middle is taken care of. Modeling, access control and governance, caching for scale, open APIs, which means that now you can go from API to AI in minutes. That is our exact data hero over there on the right. So what's inside the box? Well, first of all, is that fully managed data pipeline. We have 100 plus connectors day one. We'll talk about what some of those are here in a minute. That data warehouse now is your immutable data store for as long as you need to keep data. Some of y'all in the healthcare space need to keep that for 7 years. Done. And you want to keep it locked up so that only the right people have access to it. Done. You want to have a unified, optimized data model that's performant and easy to understand and access. Done. And you want it secure, right? But also, you want to get all this newfound information into the tools that you already have today, or into tools that are future-proof, moving you to the future. So we're going to talk about what it means to have a SQL-compliant interface, and why we would be taking APIs over on the left and then just repackaging those into new APIs in this slide. So if we looked at this vertically here, what you see is a ton of stuff on the bottom, right? Again, these source systems, every contact center is different. Doesn't matter if you're Cisco or NICE, you're likely going to have a different CRM. You know, maybe you've got Salesforce and Amazon Connect working together, but inevitably you're Snowflake in some aspects. You're just a different combination of the same underlying technology. So we've got our connectors into that. By the way, the connectors are built on an open standard, Singer standard actually, which means that new connectors can be developed in the matter of a couple of days. So we're not talking about monolithic big projects to come in and to integrate whatever your data sources are. Above that, Spectra in the box, fully managed, includes your unified metrics across it. Whether we are looking at service level and AHT or we're unlocking the data science of contact centers, we're doing that in a governed way. So now you don't have to worry about this team over here having access to all of your data. Finance just needs to see a certain subset of metrics. Maybe you're multi-tenant, maybe you're BPO, contact center, outsourcer like Inflection CX, and you want to make contact center data available to your customers, but you need to do that in a secure, governed way. Now all that's included. And on top of this, now you can plug in machine learning applications and AI tools that leverage the entire orchestrated data system. We'll give you some examples of those here in a moment. Now you have truly integrated insights out of the box that can sit inside of any tool that can issue, that can do a SQL query. Now we can deploy data-driven workflows. Let's say you want to notify your supervisors every time an agent's late from break. Boom, that can now be done. Or you want to get notified whenever there's an outlier. Maybe the longest call waiting is over an hour. Nobody's seeing it. You want to be notified, or you want to kick off a workflow. The power of our data APIs is that those workflows can be built. Custom applications. This is huge because what we're seeing right now is data applications and products coming to market. So think quality assurance tools for IVAs, for conversational AI. New space, new tool. Do you really need to go buy a new tool when you can just build on and consume the data that you already have? So some key pipelines, again, since we're about managing that end-to-end pipeline, over 100, but here's some of the key ones day one. So covers most of the market, right? Because when you look at a customer data platform, you look at other tools on the market, the one gap they have is that they'll connect to Salesforce and HubSpot, but they don't connect to your WebEx contact center or Twilio. Heck, even Segment. Twilio paid over $1 billion to acquire Segment as a customer data platform. It doesn't integrate back into Twilio's contact center product. We do. We do it day one. There is now a proliferation of conversational AI tools, some open source like Raza, some proprietary like Google Dialogflow and Lex and Watson, and then there's a mix, of Exact, our Ivan, intelligent virtual agent infrastructure. One of the gaps that we've seen emerge is the ability to manage an end-to-end customer experience between an IVA and an agent. So you can deploy Dialogflow or you can deploy Replicant or somebody into your NICE environment, but who's going to marry all that data together to give you what that full customer experience looks like? The answer is Spectra. And we're going to integrate it with your Zendesk or your Gorgeous or your Shopify or whatever you have today in your people operations software. Whether it's HR, scheduling, doesn't matter. We understand too that data warehouse is an ambiguous term, right? Some of you may have one today. Some of you might like to have one. Some of you may have a data swamp. Right? Spectra, however, coordinates all of the access control upstream of a data application so that people have access to the right metrics. What this means is that today, a lot of that access control and governance gets done in the BI tool. You're going in, you send up users, okay, this person needs access to this. What happens when that changes? You add a new data source, or you remove one, or you add a new group. Do you want to change that in every tool? No, you want to change it in one place, and every tool that connects to it persists that governance. Also need it HIPAA compliant, you need GDPR, You might want to connect this into your existing AWS infrastructure inside of a VPC so that data never leaves your cloud. And it scales. Built in the cloud, AWS native. We handle caching and accelerate query response time. Batteries included data model. Again, if you're Data Dan, sitting between APIs and an end user, and you maybe are new to the contact center, or you don't understand everything coming from a source system, wouldn't it be nice to have an end-to-end model that lets you get to work? So study after study and survey after survey says that a data scientist's time, somewhere between 50 and 75% of that individual's time is spent doing nothing but data monkeying, getting the data together. What if we could flip that now so that they can connect to the unified data in a matter of minutes and spend 80% of their time finding the value in the data instead of finding the data itself? Now we can do that. So that's cool, Chris, but like, where does the data go? The answer is we're not delivering a new BI tool, we're delivering a headless BI tool. And now you can access this from anywhere. Any tool, visualization, BI engine, any data science notebook can connect to Spectra with one line of code. You punch in the SQL connection string that is unique to you. Available on our portal. These are some example integrations here that you're seeing, but really connect to anything. Spectra does ship with Apache Superset, which is an open source BI tool, because one, you got to have something to start seeing data day one. And two, I've personally spent about 20 years of my life dedicated to mostly BI tools. Built a few, sold a few, have realized that there's some great tools in the market, some proprietary and some open source, that there's very little value in a company building a new BI tool, because there's some great ones out there. So what we did, we're actually retiring, effective today, Cognitive Insights Portal, also known as Smart City Engage, for those that have been, remember that, in favor of adopting Apache Superset across the board. Why? It's beautiful, which we'll show you here in a minute. It's real time. A lot of your BI tools today do not support real time. If you're in a contact center, you care about real time. And it's open source, which means you can host it on your own, or we can manage and host it for you just as part of the overall solution. Lastly, what we're doing here is we are now opening up the data science of contact centers. We're opening up the ability to get at new insights that you never thought possible, because you're stuck with these applications and systems that were built around 1909. Version control data models, we're just warming up. So as we start to bake in new metrics, new machine learning outputs, we're going to put this right into the data model. And because it's version controlled, whatever you build and deploy today isn't going to break when we deploy the next version. We're shipping it with pre-built insights, queries, and templates, and we're moving you beyond the average. Here's an example, documented developer portal for our data APIs. Every element is available via the SQL REST, via the SQL endpoint, or REST or GraphQL API. GraphQL is actually very powerful because it unifies all of your API calls across all of these systems into one unified model. If you're not a developer, your developer is going to love you in comparison to dealing with all of the fragmented APIs that we revealed earlier, which means that you can either integrate third-party enterprise tools that you have today. Maybe you have a custom agent desktop and you want to put an agent stats right in front of them every day. You can do that with one API call now, or your developer can do that. Maybe you want to build your own tool. Maybe you're like, man, if I'm a startup or a company that's like, I need to build a data or an AI tool product, but I want it to connect to the whole ecosystem in the space. why would I go build all those connections on my own? Why don't I do it in one place and do it on Spectra? So let's take a look at this. Okay, so the first thing, my mouse will cooperate with me here. You're gonna log in and you're gonna see something that looks like this. Refresh here to make sure. So it's unified exact experience here. So you're gonna see the ability to connect out to a lot of different things. Right here, though, is your data sources. And let's say you want to create a new organization. Come in, add a data source. This is where you may need some help from your IT team. All we need are the API keys from your source system. If you're a nice customer, you grab those. If you're Twilio, you grab them and you put them in here. And once you do that, you come back up to Spectra and you can immediately dive right into Data Explorer. So Data Explorer is not in itself a BI tool. It's not designed for that. What this is to really just give you a quick view here of what's there. So let's look at some IVA detail here. Come in here, I'm just going to grab a couple of data points. Let's look at this by domain. So again, very quick browse here. What I'm looking at is intelligent virtual agents, conversational AI bot, if you will, total number of interactions by what people said to the bot. So I'm going to show you some better analytics here around that. But the point of Data Explorer here, again, is just to get a very quick view. Start playing with the data that comes day one. So you'll notice a bunch of different stuff here, right? With more on the way. So coming back to the dashboard, I mentioned superset. Why don't we connect right out to it? So now single sign-on, logged into superset here. We've got a couple of example dashboards. Superset in itself is an extremely powerful tool. This is an example dashboard for intelligent virtual agents. So again, some cool tools out there to help you manage your IVAs, but they're islands, right? In one click, now we're in here and we're looking at whatever you want to see about your intelligent virtual agent. So we can see success rate by domains. We can scroll down here and see all of the interaction details, responses. Again, doesn't matter what IVA tool you're using, whether you're using Exacts or Rasa or MindMeld or fill in the blank. Superset, we've got tabs here to be able to very quickly scroll through the data or to present different views. So again, each user inside your organization is going to have a different need, right? Easily built here. So here we're looking at containment rate, cost savings to date. If your CFO ever wants to know what are the cost savings for this new intelligent virtual agent, we'll put that right in the dashboard for you. Down here, intent trending. So this is interesting. So this is actually public data. We ran a large contact center for one of the top 20 counties in the US for their vaccination efforts. And we powered it with the early versions of Spectra. So what you're looking at here is the IVR automation and intents across vaccination over the last 2 years. So when you look here, anybody remember the Omicron variant? That's right there. Again, superset, extremely interactive, well built, And here we're looking at return contacts because we do ship with a contact data store. So you've got one place. It's not a CRM, but you got to start getting your customer data together. You want to manage exceptions inside your IVA? It's one click away. Also extremely powerful. You can edit dashboards, create your own charts. If you got that data scientist, it's going to love it, knock themselves out. So are your end users, because again, it's real time, any data across the ecosystem here. So now we're looking at, different call stats across different organizations. Say another emerging trend we're seeing is Slack and Discord being used as support channels. What if you want insights into that, into your Slack community or your Discord community? This is now one click away. And man, does it look good. So I mentioned that it's not all about BI. It's not all about dashboards. Right? We want to get data into other ways to visualize it, other ways to analyze it. So by using our SQL connection, we've connected into a tool called Double Loop. Some of you guys might have seen when I put this out on LinkedIn last week. So one of the challenges we've always had in operating contact centers is helping our team understand the way metrics map together. So average handle time, as an example, is comprised of subcomponents. So you can look at an average handle time and go, okay, I'm high today or I'm low or right on target. But there's a lot of stuff that gets obfuscated inside that average, right? So now we can look at what are the subcomponents to this? Well, after call work, talk time, hold time, what's trending within each one of these metrics. And the beautiful thing is that this can be connected to Spectra in the matter of minutes. So I'll give you another example here of the dream map that we started to build out in order to run Inflection CX, which again is our BPO, around staffing capacity. So we care there's a lot of things that go in your staffing capacity, right? You care about attrition, and not just attrition, but attrition from onboarding a new hire class all the way through the life cycle of an agent. You care about people on the phones, right? You care a lot about your attendance, unplanned attendance and shrinkage, schedule adherence, training. How do you plug this in? Well, let's say we wanted to click on this. You're going to connect this to a data source. You're going to grab Postgres, and you're going to grab, so we provide you again the SQL connection string, so you have all this. Connect it in there, and then you drop in the query for this particular data point. Now, one cool thing about Superset is, I'll just give you one example here. I can come here and I can view this SQL query. I can copy it, come back over here, paste it in, and I'm done. So now all of a sudden you have an entirely new way to see your contact center. So, but let's say you want to look at your intelligent virtual agents. What's happening inside this new conversational AI IVR? Well, you've got total interactions, and then you have different treatments and outcomes for these. Maybe you want to care about exceptions. Where's the bot failing? Care about agent transfers, resolution rates. This is completely customizable based off of what you need to be able to see. But it's not the only tool, right? We talked a lot about data scientists. Data scientists love Python. They love data science notebooks. Problem is, two problems. One, connecting it into the data source to get the data. We already solved for that problem. The second is like, where do you put the output? Right? Well, there's a whole lot of great tools out there that can do that. One of which is called Streamlit. So Streamlit will let a data scientist do their analysis and publish those results with a few clicks. And so now all of a sudden, instead of looking at average handle time, we can look at statistical analysis and standard deviations around handle time by agent. This dashboard, by the way, was put together by Data Dan in about a day. And what we're seeing here is that distribution of agents by handle time, who's within the performance guidelines, who might need some coaching, who might be at risk. And you're seeing the outliers here. One of the banes of our existence in the contact center and customer experience is the averages, average handle time. Here we can see that distribution. We can break it down by talk time, right? Because again, if it's a comprised metric or a composite metric, you care about what's underneath it. So let's look at hold time. What we're seeing then, and then even average wrap-up time, which, man, is there some variance there. So you may have an agent that is trying to get, my mouse is freezing there we go. May have really short hold time and talk time, but extended average call work time. Or maybe it's the other way around. They have very short after call work time because they're keeping the customer on the phone, talking while they're doing their after call work time in order to not get in trouble for ACW. This is going to let you see that. And it's just one example of what we can do. So this agent on the left, a lot of after call work and a lot of outliers above that median, above the mean. Down here, we've got agents that are on the other side of that distribution. This doesn't answer the questions for you yet, but it's the first step in identifying what questions to ask. And then lastly, I mentioned this notion of data applications, like building new tools on top of a data platform. What might be a cool example of that? So over the weekend, in prep for a launch, we started building out a new QAI tool, QA for AI. There's some tools on the market today that will help you better manage and review quality assurance for your conversational AI. Problem, standalone applications. Other problem, they're applications that are hard coded. So I hope you like what they give you, because if you need it changed, that ain't gonna happen. You're bound to their roadmap. What this is pulling data right out of Spectra, all the intelligent virtual agent interactions, and it's letting you build out a QA tool for it. So here we can look at right at that interaction and play the call recording. Say it's an IVR voice interaction. We can see the full transcript and we can see everything about it. The next step is, if this thing has failed, you can retrain it, because you can export the training data right from here and import it right back into your IVA. We're actually going to ship this as a product because we love it so much. We've got a current version that we have today. This is built in a no-code tool. And that's the power here when it comes to democratizing data. This sits inside of Bubble.io. So we don't need, we need our developers. But as we talk about getting access and data and tools into people's hands faster, cheaper, no code connects right into Spectra. This was built in a couple of days. So as you can tell, the options here with respect to what you can now do with Spectra are truly limitless. So let's talk about pricing and availability. Okay, so Spectra is available immediately today, and it's breakthrough pricing. So most vendors in our space think at the enterprise level. They want to charge you a lot of per user license fees. They want to charge you per data source. They want to charge you for everything. And boy, do the system integrators love that, right? But because they get to charge for all those custom services. Spectra is aligned with pricing that you may be accustomed to from the cloud providers like AWS, Twilio. You pay for what you use. Inside of that, you're going to pay for storage, of the data, but it's fully managed. It includes the data warehouse, immutable data, model data. If you're building data applications and you're moving data across the pipeline, across the wire, you're gonna pay for egress, which is already optimized because of the caching layer and the pre-aggregations in the model. And if you want us to manage superset for you and just get going and add your users to that, there's a per user fee. So that's it. Thank you everybody for joining today. With any questions, feel free to reach out. Drop me a note either by email. I guess I did forget to put my email address here. I will do that for you. And actually, let's just do this. And we are happy to schedule one-on-one demos and discovery sessions. So thank you again, guys. Have a great day and appreciate your time.